people you are. Oh, my kind of people so far. Oh, my kind of friend, please. Be my kind of people indeed.
How old are you?
47.
And this is your third recurrence? So when were you first diagnosed?
2013.
And what's the diagnosis? Or what was it in 2013?
In 2013, I was stage 3B, eventually, when they finished staging everything.
And did they tell you what kind of breast cancer it was?
So the first time I had it, when they were trying to figure it out, I came back, I was negative for estrogen, negative for progestin. I was equivocal for HER2.
Okay.
So they had to run it again. So equivocal was neither positive nor negative.
Right.
So they had to run it again, and I was very slightly positive. So they're like, we'll treat you for HER2.
Okay.
Which meant I got Herceptin added in. The second time, I was purely triple negative.
Okay.
In retrospect, I was probably triple negative the first time, which wouldn't have affected the way they treated me. They added the Herceptin in. It didn't make a difference. But in retrospect, I was probably always triple negative.
How much time between your first diagnosis and your second?
I was diagnosed in September of 2013. My second diagnosis was, I think, April of 2018.
Okay.
And I had said 6 months prior, I had been feeling, so my first lump was like here.
Okay.
You could see it. I got out of the shower one day, I was putting lotion on, and I was like, it's weird. A lump there.
Yeah.
But my daughter was 2-ish, and I had, my younger daughter, and I had breastfed her, and I'd weaned her not too far previously, and I thought, clogged milk duct or something, you know, no biggie.
Did it hurt?
Nope.
No pain.
Didn't have health insurance at that time, and this was pre-Affordable Care Act.
Yep.
Okay.
So I was getting ready to go through a rather nasty divorce, trying to save money to move out and all that, so couldn't afford to go to the doctor. Didn't think it was really anything at first. And then friends were like, oh, you should go get a mammogram. You know, even friends were like, I'll pay for it, I'll help you. And I'm like, no, because if this is cancer, I'll never get health insurance. Because at that time, they didn't have to, I would never have been insurable.
So it was a pre-existing
It was a pre-existing condition, and
Gotta
I'd
love
never
that.
get insurance. So I knew I couldn't do anything about it until I could afford to get health insurance.
So how long did you wait?
Probably a year.
From the time you saw the lump, worried what it was, to the time you got health insurance and got it checked? Okay.
Yeah, at least a year. And at that point, it had grown to where you could see it. Like you would just look at it and see it with your naked eye. And
you were how old? I'm sorry.
I was, the first time, I think I was 39.
Okay.
And so being young, it being visible, it didn't hurt, it didn't bother me. I at first I didn't think it was cancer, because everything they tell you about cancer is like, you know, kind of dig for it, go deep, you know, go under your arms, like really press. I didn't think you could see cancer, like with the naked eye. And so when I finally got divorced, moved out, did all that, had health insurance, went to the doctor. The doctor's like, yeah, let's get you set up, go for a mammogram. They sent me for a biopsy. Well, I went for the mammogram, and they said, we'd like to do a biopsy. Can you do it today? And I was like, oh.
Right.
Because you know how healthcare goes. Like,
Sure.
yeah, we'll see you 6 months from next Tuesday.
now,
Yeah.
It's not
so if they want to
urgent,
do it
it's not.
today,
Yeah.
it's real.
I was like, yeah, okay, let's do this. So they took some biopsies, and again, they usually are like, oh, your doctor will call you in a few days, whatever. I left that day with the guy telling me, we're 99% sure this is cancer. Wow. So, you know, that just started the ball rolling, and they were pretty fast. And I actually did my first chemo through a vein, which they don't like doing because they didn't have time they couldn't get my port insertion scheduled fast enough. So they did it through the vein the first time, and I actually watched the vein like turn brown and die and disappear.
Wow.
That's why they don't do chemo through veins. They try to do it through the port because the drugs are too strong. They'll destroy your veins. But they wanted to start it that quickly. So the first time I did 6 rounds of chemo. I did a radical double mastectomy. They removed 13 lymph nodes on one side, like 4, I think, on the other. I had expanders put in. I did radiation. I did reconstruction, and they're like, okay, you're done. But after the chemo, after the surgery, I didn't have a great pathological response. I still had cancer in, I think it was 3 lymph nodes, and it was still high-grade cancer left.
So you're done, but you still have cancer. You're not in remission, you still have cancer.
They don't even use that word anymore. They use NED, no evidence of disease.
Okay.
But in your case there was still evidence, though, right?
There was still evidence after the chemo.
Okay.
So they do the surgery. That's why they do surgery after chemo usually, to see how well the chemo's worked.
Okay.
If they have a choice, they try to do it after.
For the
most
double
cases.
mastectomy.
Right. In most cases, they do that, and they try to do chemo first, they say, usually, because if it's anywhere else in your body, you don't have to wait for the chemo if there's any complications from surgery.
Okay. But they didn't take, so was it in your lymph nodes then when it was still there? Because you had no breast tissue left, correct?
Well, they did the chemo first, and there was, it was in my lymph nodes, and it was in the breast tissue.
Okay.
So I think originally it was in 7 lymph nodes at least.
Okay.
And when they removed those, 3 still had cancer in them. And there was still some residual cancer in the breast.
Okay.
And so after the surgery, that was it. There was nothing else for me. And they're like, you're done. So I kept going every 3 months, then every 6 months.
And is it for the scan that they do?
They would do chest, abdomen, pelvis, and a bone scan.
Okay.
And that's to see if it's growing?
To see if anything's returned. Because they removed everything at this point.
Oh, they did.
Okay.
Surgery.
Okay, they removed the 3 lymph nodes.
After the surgery, they removed all those lymph nodes, but they send everything off for biopsy.
Okay, that's where I was confused.
Yeah. With the mastectomy and the lymph nodes, they send it off, but they see that the chemo wasn't entirely successful.
Gotcha. Because
It
they had to
didn't
go
kill
in
everything.
and take more.
Okay. It didn't kill everything.
Got it.
Because chemo was first, and then surgery.
Then surgery.
And then
they got everything.
Then you were clear. Okay.
Yep.
Now,
So-
with double mastectomies, at least in my experience, they say take everything. Take the nipple, that's breast tissue, take it all. Is that what you did? Radical, all of it?
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So then fast forward like 4 years, I feel something along like here, like where your arm meets your body. I feel a lump. Not super defined, but I've got a ton of scar tissue. Go to my oncologist, who's amazing, and I tell her, I feel this, and she's like, I'm not really feeling what you're feeling, but let me send you to the breast imaging center. Let's see what they say. Go there. 4 years after my initial diagnosis, get mansplained by this lovely gentleman who's like, women like you often feel like you feel something, and it's, it can be scar tissue. And I said, well, that's interesting, because generally scar tissue doesn't grow 4 years after a surgery.
Right.
And this is something new. And he's like, well, if you continue to think you feel something.
And that's when she punched him in the face.
Because
Yeah,
it's like, I
pretty
feel
much I
something now.
wanted
That's why
to.
I'm here.
I'm here because I feel something.
Right, like,
Okay,
How
he's in the wrong
condescending.
line of work.
Yeah,
Right.
You've got to hear the patient.
yeah. And he's like, if you think you continue to feel something, you can speak to your doctor, and maybe they'll send you for further
But to
imaging.
think about, in your case, you already had what you went through. And if he was familiar with your chart, the last thing you would say is, oh, if you think it's like, oh my gosh, let's look at it right away. Why wouldn't you?
Like, I'm a
do that?
certified expert. Do you want me to flash you? Like, this is my area.
Well, he did like an ultrasound, but if you've ever seen an ultrasound, they're kind of, I don't know how anybody sees anything, honestly. Like, you've got to be a magician to figure out what you're looking at on ultrasound. When there's a bunch of scar tissue and all things
Well, you would
going
get
on.
a technician, a
Radiologist.
to look
Yeah.
specifically for that. But was he that or no? Was he just the person that would do that?
He was,
scan?
I guess, like the guy that did the scan.
Okay,
And
so
then
it would
they
have to be
looked
sent
at it,
up.
and
Okay.
I guess it was kind of inconclusive. Or
they didn't do it-
something.
did they do it?
didn't do anything further.
Okay.
And my oncologist was like, they didn't say any.
What were
they
you
didn't
feeling
need
though,
any
at that
further
time?
follow up.
What was your heart and gut telling you at that time?
I thought it was something coming back.
Okay.
And that was what I thought. But then you always, when medical experts are
Yeah.
telling you no, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Could I be paranoid?
I could be,
Yeah.
but I'm thinking not. My
Right.
gut's saying this is back. And I had planned a cruise. We had gone on a cruise because I'm like, this is about to go down again. We might as well go have some fun because I know something's up.
Yeah.
And 6 months later, when my next visit was planned with my oncologist, she's like, how are you? What's going on? I'm like, this lump is still there. It's getting bigger, and let me tell you about this guy. And she's like, let me see. And she's like, oh yeah, I'm feeling what you're feeling now. She's like, we need to do something. She's like, let's send you off for a biopsy. And sure enough, it was cancer. It was triple negative this time, clearly triple negative.
Now, what does that mean?
So triple negative breast cancer is usually ER positive, PR positive, or HER2 positive.
Okay, and that's
It's
hormonal, right? The hormonal.
Yes,
Okay.
ER, PR, or hormonal. Estrogen, progestin positive.
Okay.
And then HER2 is, I guess it's hormonal also. But so those are the three types breast cancer usually is.
Okay.
Triple negative just means it's not one of those.
Okay.
So
Some other form of cancer that's attacking your breast tissue or area.
yeah, so it's a harder form of cancer. It's a more aggressive form of breast cancer, and it's the way the doctor explained it to me was each of the three typical types of breast cancer has a targeted treatment. So she's like, we can shoot those with a laser beam. Triple negative, we're basically lobbing grenades at it. There's not a targeted treatment for it. We just throw everything we've got at it, hoping we can kill it.
Okay.
But it's very prone to metastasizing, it's prone to coming back, and we don't currently have an effective treatment for it. So triple negative this time. Went through chemo here in Charlotte. When the chemo was over, traditionally what they do is they go in and do surgery to kind of clean up the area, see if there's any residual cancer, and I mean, in my mind, it leaves a sludge behind. I mean, you have dead stuff in there.
Yeah,
Like
right.
the cancer died, and like kind of we want that out. At this point, there was some debate whether I was a stage 4 or stage 3. It was a recurrence, but it was a localized recurrence.
Okay.
And that is a little more atypical.
So it had not metastasized that they were seeing.
Yeah, like it wasn't a typical metastasis, but when they did a PET scan, I had things lighting up all over the place. So I had lymph nodes lighting up in my clavicle, in my breastbone, on the other side of my body, in my axillary lymph node, so under my arm. I had a spot like in my lung that lit up. I had there was all these little micrometastases, but nothing that they could biopsy. They can't biopsy anything in your breastbone. They can't crack that open.
Right.
They can't, they just can't get these
Take a
things.
piece of your lung. I mean,
Right. It wasn't anything easily gone.
Sure.
So they said, it doesn't matter. We're going to give you chemo. So they did the chemo. When they scanned me after, insurance wouldn't pay for another PET. They would only do CTs, and the CTs appeared clear. So here in Charlotte, the standard of care is I'm now a stage 4, a metastatic breast cancer. Your standard of care is palliative care. They keep you comfortable, they keep you stable. They no longer try to cure you. I am 44 years old, and they're kind of like, we'll see if it pops up again. And I'm like, I don't really like that answer. And
Now, this is after chemo, and they think that they've got it all, or no?
They don't really know, and they don't
Okay.
really care.
Gotcha.
They're like, we gave you chemo, and that's what we do.
And we're done now.
Yeah.
Have a nice
And
life.
let us know the next time something hurts, and we'll treat that
Maybe.
as best we can. Yeah.
Maybe.
Because at this point, you'll never be cured, and we'll just keep you comfortable.
Okay.
So, my oncologist is like, I don't really like that idea either. Let's see what we can do. She said, I'll send you to Duke. All scheduled to go to Duke for a second opinion on Monday. I get a call on Friday from somebody who's just pushing papers around. She's like, hey, do you know this is out of network? No. Because I ain't got no money.
Right.
This is my second bout with this. I'm
Yeah.
a single mom of 2. I don't have the money to pay for, like, the stuff I'm
Right.
still paying on from the first time 4 years ago.
Sure.
So, we switched last minute, and they sent me to UNC Chapel Hill, which was actually
that's
worked
in
out
network?
great. They happened to be in network.
Okay.
Duke took Blue Cross Blue Shield, but not my flavor.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't my flavor of Blue Cross Blue Shield.
And do you have family? Do you have parents? Do you have anyone helping you during this
My
time?
mom passed away during my first time with cancer when I was getting radiation. She passed away. My dad's here, but he's not particularly helpful.
Okay.
So I switch and go to Chapel Hill. They're really awesome. I go through what they call their multidisciplinary clinic. So you consult with a medical oncologist, surgical oncologist, and a radiation oncologist.
Okay.
So the surgical oncologist there says, I kind of disagree. I don't think you're necessarily stage 4. This is in your lymph system. You've lost so many lymph nodes that I think you have a drainage issue.
Okay.
He's like, you have cancer that's gotten into your lymph nodes, and it has no option but to back up. Like, your kitchen sink clogs, your bathtub overflows. Like, he's
And
like,
that's why we're seeing swelling?
that's why we're seeing cancer in lymph nodes. Cancer doesn't usually go up and over,
Okay.
and mine did.
Because it had nowhere else to go.
He's
Okay.
saying, I think it's more that your lymphatic system, it had cancer, and your cancer is back, like, in this area, and it's gotten into your lymph system, and you're missing lymph nodes below where it is.
Sure.
So it went up and it went over because it didn't have anywhere else to drain.
So what's his solution?
So he's like, I am willing to do the surgery, where here in Charlotte, they brought me before the tumor board, and all the surgeons here in Charlotte were like, yeah, no, we're not touching her. So they wouldn't do the surgery. So he's like, I'll do the surgery. He's like, the only lymph nodes that we can remove are the supraclavicular here along my clavicle. He's like, I can get to these, no problem. I'm going to resect your mastectomy, because at the time, the standard was not to remove as much breast tissue as they do commonly today.
Okay.
Now they remove, like, up into, you know, when you have your bra on, that little nugget of meat that
Yep.
pops out of the corner of your bra? That's called your tail of Spence. I no longer have one. They remove it commonly in a mastectomy now, and they didn't in 2018.
Really?
Picture like a chicken cutlet. You know, there's like the fat end and then the pointy end.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's your boob.
Right.
So now they remove that nugget of breast meat that kind of comes up and almost into your shoulder. That's
Did
where
not
my
know that.
recurrence was. Yeah, I didn't know what a tail of Spence was. I had to look it up. It was on my pathology report.
Well, I have surgery scheduled in November because I was told my implants for my double mastectomy would only last 10 years, and I'm 13 years out. And they left breast tissue under my left arm.
Mm-hmm.
And when I asked why, because mine is all very sore to the touch, I have fibrocystic breast tissue, I was told, well, it would have left a divot. And I said, I'm sorry, you just took all my breast tissue, my nipples, and you think I'm worried about a divot? Well, we can go back in, but that's a third surgery. And I went, you're not touching me. 13 years later, I'm now talking to doctors about going in, getting that.
Mm-hmm.
So if I got stuff up here I need to get too, take that too. And I was leaning toward maybe not doing the surgery because I'm a big fat chicken and have 20 horses to feed and I don't have time to be down. But now I'm maybe leading back toward it. Thanks,
Ask
lady.
if you've had your tail of Spence removed.
I think I will.
That's just it's just fascinating to see how, and from what you share from your experience. I mean, thank God the medical field grows, but
Right.
my goodness, could we grow faster? And just, I mean, like you're an individual, beautiful person, and it's like just to say, well, no,
Yeah, we're
like,
done.
like, you know, and to think that you weren't able to get the initial help because you were concerned, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
I would do the same thing. I don't have insurance right now. I've got to wait.
Right.
And it's like, we've got to do better.
Yeah.
Like, we've got to be able to take care of the moms, you know, who are like, I don't have, but I've got a concern. It just makes my mind reel.
But that's it. Do
Right.
better.
Right.
Don't mansplain.
Right.
Don't
No.
say, well, I don't think you're valid. Just do better, especially when we're talking to someone that's been through this rodeo, that knows
Yes.
what she's talking about.
Right.
Can we not talk down to you? Can we just maybe get
Well,
with
Tree,
the
look
oncologist,
at
do a
you like-
biopsy?
You know, if I was walking in your shoes as best as I could, I
Yeah.
cannot share your experience, but have empathy.
Yes.
And be like, you know, treat me like I'm an intelligent human being that you are.
Right.
Oh, there's a lot of that though. Like I've had
Wow.
so much chemo, like more chemo than the average person, and it affects like my joints, like my knees. When I walk up and down, excuse me, walk up and down stairs, my knees like crunch. And I'd asked my doctor about it, and she's like, "Oh, let me send you to the sports medicine guy. See, is there something other wrong, or is this from chemo?" And you know, before the guy even hardly looked at me, and he started telling me like, "Well, women of your age who live a sedentary lifestyle."
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
got that too.
you don't know me. You
Right.
haven't even asked me what I do for a living. I don't have a desk job. I'm a hairstylist. I stand. I
Right.
walk. You know, I'm very active. You know, we've got animals, and I
Yeah.
never
The
sit down.
assumption.
I don't.
The assumptions.
That
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
unbelievable. Like, where does that come from? That's not even in your job to go ahead
Right.
and make judgment. Your job is to ask questions.
Yeah,
and
it
to
was
learn.
Very
That's
typical.
really sad, though.
But you know, I
frustrating.
walked in his office, and he's got pictures of all the athletes he's treated, and I'm like,
And you're
well,
not an
I'm
athlete,
not
so
a
you're
Carolina
sedentary.
Panther, and I'm not a golf pro, I guess.
Yeah.
So I
You're
just
stagnant.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm a
so you're
middle-aged
sedentary.
woman who's,
Right.
you know, apparently just supposed to have creaky knees.
Okay. Like, what do you do with that?
Well, it goes again how we have to so hard be our own advocate.
Oh,
Or our
absolutely.
families have to be our own advocate, and we have to press and we have to push through just barriers and people's judgments and people's stuff. And it's like, stop yourself and check yourself, dude.
Right.
You don't know my story.
Well, and if you feel like something is wrong with you, you're the only one that can make someone do something. And if you're at a doctor who's not going to do something, you go find another doctor.
Right.
You don't just say, okay, well, I guess that's it. You didn't.
Right.
Well, and you know, there's like, I think of my parents' generation, they don't question, they
Right.
don't ask.
Yeah.
Right.
They never say, is there a better option? Is there someone else? You know, if I didn't have an amazing oncologist who said, would you like a second opinion? I didn't know I didn't know that was a thing.
What a beautiful thing.
Right.
And the fact, you know, my oncologist, I think she's great because she doesn't seem to have an ego.
Yeah.
She is always willing to say, you know, do you want to talk to someone else? Would you like to
Right.
speak to another doctor? Would you?
That's amazing.
Not a doctor that's like, oh, I know everything. And
Yeah.
you should just listen to me.
Right. So the second time it comes back, you find the surgeon is willing to get in there and do something. Does he get it all?
Yes, so actually the second time they did not find residual cancer.
Okay.
He took the lymph nodes out of along my clavicle.
Okay.
Those didn't have any residual cancer, and he resected my mastectomy. He's like, I'm going to remove anything that looks like breast tissue.
Perfect.
Like, go for it.
Yeah, get it out.
And now you can count my ribs under my arm. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
And he was really awesome, and the doctors there were awesome, and then I did radiation twice daily for 3.5 weeks.
And your girls are how old at this time?
So then, let's see, that would have been 2018, and they would have been 11 and 8.
And who's got them? Is your ex still involved? Or are you having to be mom and nanny and...
So, I have a great boyfriend. At this point, we were living together, and he is ex-military. He was in 18 Delta in Special Forces, which is like their version of a doctor.
Sure, okay.
So that came in really handy. We were friends during my first bout with cancer, and we got together like right as my cancer was happening. So he started helping me through my first bout, which was great because, you know, I'm dealing with drains and tissue and you know, all this kind of
familiar
stuff.
to him. He's not
right.
grossed
After
out.
he got out of the military, he was a paramedic. So that was perfect.
Yeah.
So, so I had him through this time. The girl's dad's not really in the picture.
Okay.
They saw him periodically, but you know,
your
just for a
support
day.
network is basically you
Friends
and your boyfriend
and less,
and your
yeah.
friends.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So yeah, the kids are little. They didn't really get it the first time. Like I had them come and help me shave my head the first time because I didn't want it to be scary when mommy showed up bald.
Yeah.
Skylar chickened out the first time shaving my head. She was like, I don't want to hurt you. She's like, can I put on your lipstick after? I'm like, sure, babe. So she did that, but Zoe did help cut my hair.
Now, did they know that you had cancer? Did you talk to them about that at that age?
I did, but I didn't. I kind of kept it kind of light. Like, I was like, you know, I've got this thing. I'm going to have to take some medicine. It's going to make my hair fall out.
Okay.
It's making it kind of itchy and uncomfortable. I'm just going to go ahead and shave it. And, you know, I let them know I wasn't feeling great, but I didn't want to make it a big scary.
Yeah. Okay.
So time number 2, again, the hair fell out, and, you know, I let the girls be involved in that. We, you know, went up to the salon and had some friends come up and just made it kind of a fun thing. And I was so aggravated by the time it fell out. The first time I shaved it, I wasn't even upset about it. I was in cold, and it's like falling out in chunks. And you know when like your hair gets tangled with your purse strap, and I like moved my purse strap, and this big chunk of hair fell on the floor at Kohl's, and I'm like, stick it in my pocket. I'm like, stupid.
Yeah.
So I went home. I'm like, that's it. We're shaving it.
I'm done.
I'm like, this is aggravating. So.
Sure. But I love that you made it fun for them, right? Like
right. Like. I didn't want it to be scary. Yeah.
And you included them in as much of the process as you felt that they could manage.
Age appropriate.
Right.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I try to keep it, you know, I want them to know what's going on, and I want them to understand, like, if mom's not herself, or, like, I don't want it to be like, what is going on? But, like, you know, mom feels like crap.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have bad days, but it'll be fine. It'll be over, and, you know, it's fine. So anyway, back to, so they took out the clavicles, they resected the mastectomy, we did twice daily radiation, which for some reason they think is easier. I don't know. Like it's more targeted, but they say doing it twice a day they did twice a day at maybe like 70% radiation.
Okay.
Is easier for the tissue to deal with because it wasn't that long ago, back to like how things change so quickly, it wasn't that long ago that you couldn't radiate the same tissue twice.
Okay.
And that was always my impression. It was like radiation was one and done.
Okay.
But they were able to re-radiate, but I had to go like 7:30 in the morning and like 4:30 in the afternoon.
Okay.
Every day for 3.5 weeks. That was pretty annoying.
Annoying.
Just the drive was like...
This is inconvenient.
It was super inconvenient.
Well,
like
I think cancer in general is pretty freaking inconvenient.
it really is.
It's rude.
It's totally rude.
Yeah.
I'm like, could we stop this? Like, I have things to do that don't require doctor's appointments.
Yeah, absolutely.
My life is like, and plus, as much chemo as I have, my memory is... if it is not in my phone, don't ask me if I remember. No, I didn't remember.
Right.
I don't remember, like...
Now, you sound like a very strong person, but there's moments I'm sure you're vulnerable. Where did you draw your strength? Like, because there's got to be times where during all of that, really, I mean, it had to be hard.
It is, but I think I'm more pissed off than anything.
Okay.
I'm just aggravated. I'm like, it's bullshit. Yeah. I'm too young for this. This is ridiculous. Like, why?
Use that energy to propel you.
Yeah, I'm like, I refuse to die over this. My boobs are not going to kill me. That's just dumb.
That a girl.
Yeah. You know, like, when my first bout of cancer, my kids were young and they were in school. They came home, one of them, I don't remember who, or maybe both of them, had a stomach bug. One of them, like, threw up one time, maybe had a little upset tummy, you know, whatever. It was a non-event. I ended up with the stomach bug. I literally could not get off the toilet. I felt fine otherwise. I wasn't sick. I just couldn't get off the toilet. I would sit on the toilet on my computer. And because I had nothing else to do. I'd watch movies. I'm like, you know, Facebooking. People are like, how's your day going? I'm like, oh,
It's shitty.
yeah, basically. And, you know, they're like, stay hydrated. Try it.
Yeah. On it.
Trying. Like, so, you know, I'm drinking Gatorade. Yeah. I'm drinking, like, beef bouillon because I'm, like, salty.
Yeah.
You know, I'm, like, I could not drink anymore.
Yeah.
And my blood pressure is naturally low. I mean, it was bottomed out. Les couldn't get a pulse in me anymore. He had to get a pulse in my stomach.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Like, but I felt fine. And he's like, you're literally slipping away.
Right.
And so he called the oncologist on like a Saturday or a Sunday or something. She's like, get her to the emergency room. They put me in ICU for 5 days. And I'm like, I feel fine, but I'm literally dying from pooping.
Yeah.
I am not going to shit myself to death. I am so sorry. This is not going to be how I die.
No.
It's just not. This is stupid.
Yeah, I agree.
This is like, you know, like, oh, God forbid, my poor kids have to tell us, oh, how did your mom die? She shit herself.
Yeah.
But it's just ridiculous.
But the spirit that you have and the drive that propels you,
Right.
it's amazing and it's beautiful and it's inspiring.
Yeah, it would be very easy to be woe is me and I'm
well,
so sad
and you know, the quit and give up. I mean, because it can happen.
And it's valid.
And it's valid, right. How you've turned it to be like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You know, and your drive and and who you are and your character is that strength and that I am going to bulldoze and I am going to keep going and no and no and no. We're going.
And hell no.
And hell no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's hearing you tell it is inspiring and beautiful.
Yeah.
Because it's in you.
Which
and you
is
can
awesome.
feel it and it's amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. It just makes me like, wow.
I think it's awesome.
I think yes, and it's so inspiring to go find your grit.
Yeah. Well, we have a horsemanship program here. I have a program called Grounded Horsemanship. And that's how I start my days. And I can't tell you how many times I tell these very sweet, very soft, very horse-loving ladies, find your inner bitch, channel her,
Right.
and move that horse.
Mm-hmm.
You got inner bitch down. It's awesome.
It is.
I mean, but that's what it takes to kick cancer's ass.
Yes.
Right. You just, you have to get up and, you know, and people say that to me. They're like, you know, I don't think I could do it. I was like, well, you just have to have something to do it for. Like, I'm not leaving my children.
Right.
I'm
Absolutely
not.
Nope.
It's not an option.
Right.
And, you know, they're like, well, sometimes like these surgeries, they're like, oh, you know, this is the side effect or that's okay. Is it dead?
Yeah.
Is the side effect I die?
Yeah.
Okay, then the side effect's acceptable.
Right.
If it's not dead, I don't care what it is.
Right.
You put me in a wheelchair, fine, I can raise my kids from a wheelchair. You know, you tell me it's gone to my leg and you have to lop off my leg. Okay. Is it dead?
Right.
You know, as long as I'm not dead.
Sucks.
Yeah. Anything else is acceptable.
Right. Good for you.
Yeah.
Because I'm just not leaving my kids.
That's, yeah. And not that my mom didn't have that, don't get me wrong.
No.
But
Of course not.
not this. And I was 13, I guess I didn't know her that well. But not this. So I can say, as somebody who lost her mom at 13 and my sister was 10, and maybe she did have an inner bitch, and maybe she fought it as hard as she could. But that, your girls are going to see, and they're going to feel, and they're going to channel, and they're going to have that. You're going to give them that gift of, I don't care how hard the world kicks you, you just keep going. They're going to have that.
And you adapt.
Yeah.
And you adjust. And this is what it is. And we walk through it. And
I always tell my kids, I'm like, the world might give you a cactus, but you don't have to sit on it.
Yeah.
That is true.
And sometimes they do. And it's pretty sad.
They do. But still don't sit on it.
Don't sit
Yeah,
on
don't
it.
sit on it. Yeah.
Wouldn't recommend
It
that.
may look pretty, but don't sit on
No.
it.
I know, pain in the ass.
You know, but like you were saying about your mom, like there was a time, like even me, for them to say stage 4 cancer, I always thought it was a death sentence.
For sure.
I mean, it was not. I was, talking to one of the doctors at Chapel Hill, and he was saying, he's like, I think we're basically at the point where the stage system is antiquated.
Yeah.
He said, and stage 4 cancer is going to become a managed disease, as if you had diabetes or, some other sort of disease that it'll be a lifelong disease that you have to manage, but you can live a good life with it. And he's like, I think we're almost at that point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, how do you take someone like me that I'm active, I don't stop, I'm going, I'm fit, I'm healthy, there's nothing else wrong with me except my body randomly decides to start rotting in places.
Well,
there's that.
That could be problematic.
If that would stop,
That's,
Yeah.
But,
and to tell me that, like, oh, you're stage 4 and
well, and it
really
also, when putting them in those categories, also gets into a mindset for whatever that person may think it is,
Right.
believe it is, and realize, and maybe go in a direction of, well, I can't fight this because
Right.
it's this. Yeah. It just, I think I think the categorization would make it harder not to mindset yourself.
Right.
And it's interesting too that, like, the doctors don't really tell you those things. Like the same thing with like remission and NED, and like those are words they don't really use anymore, and they don't want to tell you stages unless you specifically ask. And they're very I think they're really cognizant these days of what kind of language they use. And they're much more aware of how language affects people. And
That's
Sure.
that's a start. That's good.
yeah, like
you
a
know.
lot of the stuff I know about my disease or whatever is because I go and look up my records. Now there's my chart,
Right.
and all that's accessible, and
Yeah.
it's good and it's bad.
Oh, yeah.
If I want to know, but it's not going to depress me. It's not going to. I just
Sure.
want to be informed.
Yes.
Right.
But some people, that can be a negative because they look at that and they're like,
Well, it gets overwhelming,
that.
and then depending on their coping or where they're at emotionally,
Sure.
it can send them down
yes.
a very dark pit.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
You start looking at all the things that are wrong with you, and you're
Right.
like, how do I get out of bed in the morning?
And if I don't have
And
a support
why?
system, and
Right.
I don't, it can be. Do they offer, if needed, emotional, mental? Do they recommend counseling?
They do. They and especially when you're first diagnosed. Like, I'm with the Novant system, but Atrium has one too. Like in Novant, it's the Buddy Kemp House, and they have like social workers
Okay.
that reach out and they help with, like, they still do Look Good, Feel Better, where they can help with wigs and makeup. They have a social worker that helps with counseling, and they offer all sorts of counseling. They have counseling for kids if you want. They do financial counseling.
So that's good to. I mean, I figured they probably did, but it's good to ask for
You would
people
hope.
to know.
So that's,
Yeah.
And now with the Affordable Care Act, I know it doesn't help everyone get insurance, but at least it's a closer step for people to be able to. Because had you had that, you would have went right away.
Right. It's still a struggle though. Like, I have, I don't have insurance through work, so I still have insurance through the marketplace. Excuse me. And to make my monthly premium affordable, I have to have a higher deductible.
Oh.
And who would think cancer would be back a third time? So my deductibles have been like $8,000 a year, $7,000 a year. Well, I'm still paying on the first cancer, the second cancer, so those go on credit cards or a loan. And so this time, I've got my deductible. Well, then, so I said I went to Chapel Hill because last time that was in network with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Go back to them this time and assumed it was still in network. They give them their insurance card. Everybody wants your insurance card. Generally, you get insurance and they pre-approve everything. Nobody says boo. Don't, you sign the paperwork that says if there's extra charges you'll pay,
Sure.
but, you always pay them. She says anything, I get surgery, I see their multidisciplinary clinic again, do all the follow-up, do everything. I get a million of these explanation of benefits from your insurance
Those
company.
are fun.
Yeah. They're stacking up, don't really pay much attention to them. Start going through them one day and go, oh. Find out that everything they did in Chapel Hill was out of network. No one mentioned it. I was like, might that not have been fine?
Yeah.
No, because you signed on the dotted line, so you got this. Just
I'm
get
like,
another credit card.
Did you really think that on my third bout of cancer I'd have any money left for you people?
But somebody caught it the second time and said, hey.
That was a Duke.
Oh, they caught it, so Chapel Hill doesn't have one of those people?
I don't know, or maybe they just didn't care. I'm not sure. So I asked the social worker, and she gave me some ideas. But I called Chapel Hill's financial office, and they're like, well, first, apply for financial aid and see if maybe they can do something. I'm still waiting. I figured I'd try that first, and then I would rather chop off my little toe than call and actually speak to people in person, because I'm just shell-shocked at this point at talking to all these people and telling your story over and over. So otherwise, then I'm just going to call them and be like, in what universe did you think I'd be able to afford to just pay for this stuff out of pocket?
Right. Well, and here's my $20 a month. Take what you can get, because I don't have it.
Well, and the interesting thing is they don't really do that. That's
really?
kind of for Novant, they'll tell you how much you can pay.
But then if you can't pay it, then what?
I don't really know. They will only accept, I think, one of them was $350 a month I have to pay. I don't have another $350 a month.
Right, where are you
And then they're like,
that?
well, you can go to this clear balance or something. They'll send you to a third party. And still they have their limitations, because I think that's kind of a fallacy too. I've had so many people say you pay $10 a month for the rest of your life. It doesn't really happen. And I don't, the interesting thing is the hospitals won't work with you, because I've asked them okay, can I get the cash pay rate, or can I get the Medicaid rate? And they're like, no, it's actually illegal if we do that. You have to pay your deductible. You have
because you have insurance.
Because you have insurance, you have to pay your deductible. But if I let it go to collections,
right,
and when the collections people call me, if you ask them for a reduction, they'll give you a 20 or 30% reduction if you pay it off. So then I put it on a credit card, or then I take out a loan and pay that off, and then it's still less. And then they'll take it off your credit report.
So cancer's destroying your body and your credit.
Yes!
Perfect.
In my mind, because I have to play all these games.
Sure.
Well, and figure it out, because they don't make it easy for you.
While you're trying to go to all these appointments and
heal,
keep it all straight and
fight,
work.
And be a mom.
And take your kids to the barn.
Yep.
And
yeah.
unlimited brain cells because you've had chemo 3 times in your life, and you're your brain cells are now going,
yeah.
Yeah, they're very
So you're currently in round 3.
Yes.
Are you going through chemo now?
Yes.
How many times a week?
So chemo now is only once every 3 weeks.
Okay.
I'm doing 3 different chemo drugs, 2 of which I haven't done before. So back to that. So second round, did the chemo, did radiation, did the surgery. That time I made it 3 years. And then one night, I had just had scans. I was doing quarterly scans still. No PET scans. For some reason, insurance hates to pay for those. They'd rather pay for chest, abdomen, pelvis, and a bone scan, and a periodic brain scan. And like I said, my doctor is awesome, my oncologist. I have migraines, but she'll usually get me in for a brain scan, even though that's not the protocol. Yeah. But breast cancer usually comes back in brain, bones, lungs, liver. So for some reason, they leave your brain out. They do chest, abdomen, pelvis, and a bone scan, but they don't. The protocol is not to scan your brain. Don't know why, because I think the brain's super important.
A little bit.
A little bit, right? So she'll throw one of those in. Like, I'll be like, she's like, how's the headaches? I'm like, getting worse. Can I have a brain scan? Sure.
Nice.
Okay.
Because then there's a medical need.
Exactly. And we can get that approved.
Yep.
Yeah. So I had just had clear scans. I'd had my second COVID vaccine April 1st. Waited a little while before I had my scans because there was some reports that sometimes you can have inflamed lymph nodes and it was infecting mammograms. Didn't seem to be a problem with CTs, but didn't want to risk it. So waited a while. So like mid-May, had scans and they were fine. Maybe beginning of June or something. I was just sitting on my phone one night, and because I had this surgery in my neck, I've got a lot of scar tissue, and I have to keep it stretched out or I lose a lot of range of motion. I have to use my mirrors to drive, to turn around. And feel a lymph node in my neck, like an inflamed lymph node. I'm like, well, that's weird. No runny nose, no sore throat, because your first thought's COVID.
Yeah.
Nothing. Feel fine. That's weird. So 11:30 at night, sending my chart message, and my doctor's nurse called me 10 o'clock the next morning, and she's like, can you be here at 3? I'm like, yeah. So go in, and she's like, okay, well, you just had scans, but they don't usually do the neck. They stop, it's chest. So you're gonna have to scan the neck. We'll do a CT, we'll do an MRI. She's like, do you want to do that first, or do you want to do that concurrently with a biopsy? I'm like,
I'm here.
Let's biopsy this. We know my luck.
Right.
So she's like, all right. So they biopsy it, and they're not able to get a super clear sample. The way they explained that was kind of like, the bread's moldy, but depending upon where you grab a sample, you may or may not get enough mold spores.
Okay.
They send the tissue sample to a second lab to be analyzed. In the meantime, she calls me and she's like, we know it's not right. I've already talked to Dr. Turk, who was my surgeon here in Charlotte. He says he would do the surgery this time. He was the guy that wouldn't do it the time before. Do you want to go to him, or do you want to go back to Chapel Hill? I said, let's go back to Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
I just like their attitude better. She's like, okay.
Sure.
I'll call him, I'll set it up. And she does. They get the ball rolling very quickly. Go to Chapel Hill. He removes, turns out there's 2 lymph nodes. They do a PET scan in the meantime. Nothing else is showing. Just these 2 lymph nodes in my neck. One is right above where they removed the other lymph nodes along my clavicle, just outside of the radiation range. And my first recurrence, second bout with cancer, was also just outside the radiation field. They don't like to get too far into your shoulder because there's a chance of freezing your shoulder.
They don't want to radiate your shoulder because it'll freeze it?
Right, like there's a chance of like
freeze your range of motion?
Yeah, there's a chance the radiation can affect all that, so they try to keep away from your shoulder. But apparently radiation works because the cancer came back just outside the radiation field. And then the second time, it was again just outside the radiation field. So when they radiate this time, when I talk to the radiation oncologist, they're going to go as wide as they can go and not affect anything.
Just all the stuff?
No, but they'll do the neck and they'll go as far as they can without hitting like the retractor muscles on my tongue, which I picture now, because I have a habit of things going wrong. So I picture myself fully looking like one of those chihuahuas that loses its teeth, and I'm going to walk around like, well, they feel me. I can't affect my tongue anymore.
But not dead.
But not dead. I'm just going to look like one of those chihuahuas. You're going to have to put those little swabs on my tongue, so it doesn't dry out and crack. Fully expecting that this time. Because
easy to find at a horse show.
Right. If it's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong with me. I actually, they took when they took the lymph nodes out this time, they didn't cut the nerve because they said if they cut the nerve, I may lose the ability to shrug.
And that's important.
I was like, whatever. I just, okay.
Yeah. Who doesn't like to do this?
I still shrug lopsided, but they made the nerve angry, and it's been a mess. I start rehab for it Thursday morning, but I've lost most of the range of motion in my left arm. I couldn't lift it for a long time. Like, T-Rex, anyone? I can go this way, but it doesn't, like, that's as far as I can lift my arm this side. I can't do the YMCA anymore.
Well, I mean,
I'm no fun at
you
a...
don't have to do that all the time.
Right? I'm really no fun at a wedding anymore.
You'll have to get creative. I'm sure you will. You'll get creative with something.
I can always be like, wow, yeah.
There you go.
Adapt. You know?
Right?
Yeah, it's like little T-Rex arms.
Yeah,
You
perfect.
shampoo your hair like this.
So did the girls know more this time what's going on than they did the last time?
Yes and no. Like, so when it first happened, I was like, it's so weird that it's just a lymph node. And I was really thinking it could have been from the COVID shot.
Okay.
So at first they sort of like, I kept saying like, we just need to figure out what's going on with this lymph node. Like, it's just a lymph node. And I'm like, what are the odds of it coming back? Again, going up.
Yeah.
Not supposed to go up. Apparently my cancer didn't read that textbook.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I didn't want to freak them out. They were already freaked out about like the world falling apart and everything going on. And so, I was like, we're just going to try to figure out what's going on with this lymph node. We're just going to get this surgery to see what's going on with this lymph node. And then I was like, well, crap. So looks like it's cancer again. So yeah, they removed the lymph node. In the meantime, I got the pathology back from the second lab saying, yep, cancer again. They were both malignant. This time it was still basically triple negative, but slightly ER positive, so slightly estrogen positive, which was new. Less than 5%, which makes it still basically triple negative, but enough that it'll justify insurance paying for me to do hormone suppressing drugs for like 5 years or 10 years, whatever they, even though I'm postmenopausal, all the chemo put me in menopause the first time. But at least that gives us something else to try.
Yep.
So go to Chapel Hill, speak to their surgical oncologist. I am stage 4 this time, for sure. Last time they were still like 3, 4, I don't know. They were calling me 4, but I was like a weird stage 4. They just didn't know what to do with me. Here in Charlotte, my oncologist thought they were going to give me 6 months of this pill called Xeloda that's kind of a chemo pill. It helps prevent recurrence. But they were just going to do surgery and that was going to be it. Chapel Hill, the oncologist there, they're like, oh, we're really familiar with your case. I'm like, oh, great.
Yay!
Yeah, yay me. Talk about me like, yeah, look at this one. She's a mess. But he did comment about how they're like, oh, yeah, you're very articulate about your disease. I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of a compliment, I guess.
Yeah.
But they said that they felt that since I wasn't a typical stage 4, that I'm having what they're calling micrometastasis. He said it's kind of like when you blow one of those dandelion weeds, you get like little things popping up, which is good. It's better than like, hey, you have brain cancer, hey, you have bone cancer. But it's weird and it's unusual. He said they are starting to see more women that are a similar profile to me, like younger, otherwise healthy, getting these micrometastasis. He said that they could make a case, since I am currently NED, they've removed the cancer that's there, and from what they can tell, there's none showing. They could make a case for doing chemo one more time, which is not typical. They would normally not give me chemo. 95% chance it won't work. 5% chance maybe that the chemo could prevent it from coming back again, or buy me a longer time without a recurrence.
Okay.
Because I'm going down. Like the first time was like 4.5 years. The second time was 3 years.
So with a 5% chance, are you doing that?
Yeah, I was like, any chance.
Yeah,
It's better than nothing. So 2 of the drugs I haven't tried before. One of them I've had before. Cytoxin, methotrexate, and 5-FU. So I'm like, yeah, 5-FU.
That's my drug.
Yeah, FU. 5 times.
Now, are these in network or are they out of pocket?
The drugs are in network.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can do them here in Matthews. They make their recommendations up there, and they can do, provide the plan here in town.
Gotcha.
So my oncologist is following their recommendations here. And so they had said originally 6 months, and I just asked my oncologist last time, so I'm like, how many does that equal? And she says, well, the protocol is 6 to 8, you'll get 6. So why? She said, well, to be honest, I've never had a patient make 8. I'm like, why? Oh, that doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
And she said, well, their counts don't hold. Like, they just don't stay healthy enough to make 8. And I was like,
So if you make 6, can you just get 2 bonus
well,
ones?
that's what I said. I was like, well, what if I hold? And
Yeah.
she's like, well, the research doesn't show any benefit of 8 over 6. And I'm like,
Then why is it 6 to 8?
I was like, well, what about 7? 7's a nice number.
Sure.
And she just
Maybe
kind of
this is a
laughed.
lucky
Lucky number
Yeah, I
7.
know. And she just kind of laughed at me. I was like, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Get back to you on that. Yeah, I love it.
I was like, well, if I'm staying good.
Right,
Yeah.
right. See,
What you're determined to do, so let's just plan for that. Let's plan for 7.
Right, like,
I
let's
guess for me, it's like you have no residual cancer or whatever. It's like gone. They can't tell. So then, are the cells just hanging out to show up later? Like, are they dormant and then they just?
Yeah, like, I guess they're just small enough that they're not, they have to grow large enough to be found on a scan.
Okay.
So, like, in my
Okay.
case, they're probably there lurking somewhere, and
But then the cancer or the radiation wouldn't eradicate them?
they do, but they can't radiate your whole body. They only radiate very specific areas, which is why I find it so interesting that obviously radiation works to sterilize an area when twice now mine have come just outside the radiation field.
Gotcha.
And mine, the PET scan showed micrometastasis in other areas of my body. Again, kind of like from here to here.
Okay.
Which would still be kind of a regional metastasis, but the cancer that we've proven to be there, because, we've never biopsied any of this. The cancer that we've proven to be there has been pretty localized, like, here. So, who knows where it would pop up next, but if they can do a good part of the neck and all this, they just have to be careful not to hit, like, your trachea, your, like, different
important
stuff. Yeah, but the radiation oncologist seems pretty certain that they can do it in such a way that they're not hitting your carotid artery.
Yeah.
Things that are important.
Yes. You need that.
Yeah.
Apparently salivary glands are okay. They're like, you might have a little dry mouth, you're going to lose some salivary glands, but you have some on the other side. I'm like, all right, I'll carry a bottle of water. It's fine.
Yeah.
Give me a sippy cup.
I think
Yes.
With ponies.
With ponies. That's nice.
I will say you have an amazing attitude for as much crap as life is thrown.
But it's just crazy because on paper I look like an absolute mess, but in reality, right now,
right here.
yeah, like that's just what's so crazy when you go to the doctor and they're almost like, we're sorry, you're stage 4, we'll give you this pill, it may or may not help, like,
Like, do you
sorry.
Like,
Yeah. And I'm like, what?
fix me?
But I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm kind of fine.
Yeah, kind of fine. I mean, except for the cancer.
Right.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that, I'd be fine.
Right.
So,
It's an amazing and inspiring attitude.
Thank you for sharing.
I mean,
it's powerful. What you've shared and how you approach it and how you're getting through it and what to expect. Some of the pushback from the doctor, some of the, mansplaining and some of the things that you come up against. If somebody's listening or watching, that's going through to be like, oh my gosh, somebody gets it.
Yeah.
She
And
gets
be
me.
your own advocate.
You have to.
Yeah.
And you hear
Yeah.
all the time, oh, fight like a girl, you know, kick cancer's ass. How about fight like Jody? I mean,
Yes.
but really.
Yes.
So the day after we confirmed her scan for this event, a friend of ours confided in us that she had breast cancer. Then we post the event. The next day, another friend of mine who I haven't talked to in a few years messages me, thank you so much for doing this. I have breast cancer. What? Then another one. Then another one. I've got 5 friends, not strangers, that have reached out to me and are currently going through this.
Wow.
Then I've got women like you who we hadn't met before this, who have reached out. I have a woman in Florida who just reached out to me. I have cancer. It's in my milk ducts. They don't know exactly where. They just want to take everything. I want this ultrasound. I want to know exactly where. Okay, you're in Florida, first of all. I'm not her scan. I'm just hosting her scan. But you absolutely should do whatever you think you need to do for your body. Don't let anybody tell you different.
Right.
My aunt has breast cancer. She was told, you're probably fine, and had to be her own advocate. And this is back in the 80s.
Right.
Yeah.
Where you had to fight
Yes.
to say, no, pay attention to me. Something's wrong with my body. And that is one thing that I have taken from her advice to say, if you feel like something is off, you feel like something is not right, and your doctor's going, you're being paranoid, get another doctor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and wasn't that long ago we didn't say the word breast.
Right.
I don't think my own father has even said I've had breast cancer. I don't think he says that word.
Well, when my mom had it, it was,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or woman trouble.
right. Some of her closest friends didn't even know she had it, let alone that it was a recurrence.
And that was why I reached out to you saying, like, what a good thing this was, because there's a lot of people that have reached out to me, acquaintances or stuff, asking me, like, hey, I've got this thing. Do you think it could be cancer? Like, knowing that at this point I've got a little experience with it and stuff.
Kind of an expert.
And, they're afraid of doctors. They're afraid of going in. It's that white coat syndrome, or they're just afraid of going to a hospital. This makes it so much more fun.
That's
and
what we keep
approachable,
hearing.
and it's like I can go do this cool thing with my friends, and maybe it's not scary, or maybe it's a set dollar amount too, because that's the other thing. A lot of people can't afford it, and you don't even want to get involved in going to the doctor, and you can't call the doctor and say, how much is it to go get an ultrasound? How much is it for a mammogram?
Sure. I've had a double mastectomy. My mother died at 40, and I still have to fight with my insurance to get an ultrasound every year.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's not the standard of care.
Correct. Well, I don't care. I want to know that I am okay, so I'll pay whatever it takes. And then I found her scan. I'm like, I want that. Oh, wait, they're mobile? Okay, I want them here. What does it take? 20 people. Great, I'll host an event.
It's awesome. But these conversations are so critical.
Right.
And just talking about it so that it's not so hidden or as scary. Or I can't talk to anybody about that because what are they going to think or what are they going to say?
Right.
And it's like, no, we need the conversations. We need to share our stories.
Well, there's so much judgment in the world. If you don't agree with me, you're wrong. And not only are you wrong, but I'm going to shame you, make you feel stupid, and tell everybody else how stupid you are.
Right.
So a lot of people are afraid to talk. That's the other thing that these women who are reaching out, this is somewhere I can share. People get it. Even if you don't have it, somebody else does, or someone knows someone who does.
We've all been impacted by cancer one way or another.
Yes, you know someone, a friend, a relative,
or they have
yourself.
it. Yes, yeah.
I mean, it's a sisterhood. It's an event and a day that you're not just a number in a waiting room. That nobody's going to mansplain you.
Exactly.
Nobody's going to make you feel stupid. You just get to go out and get something taken care of, and get yourself.
And if you haven't thought about it, your story is amazing and beautiful and inspiring, and I hope many, many people listen to this. But I hope that you'll put it down on paper so that it will get to more people and reach more people, because your stories, it needs to be heard. I mean, I know maybe for you, it's your story, and so it's like, well, it's my story, and this is what I'm living. But just the blessing and the beauty that it would give to so many people. And some of it, too, is, if I don't have cancer, but my loved one does, what do I do? How can I? And that's a question.
I've had a lot of people ask that.
How do I be there for them, without getting up in their business? Or
So how do you answer that?
Yeah. I mean, what would
I've
you...
had a lot of people say, like, I've had a friend, and And, one of the things I always say is, a lot of people say, let me know what I can do. Well, nobody ever does that.
Right.
Like, nobody ever says, like, hey, I'm having a bad day. And so, like, when friends have asked, I say, like, if they have kids, like, say, hey, I'm going to take my kids to the park today. Can I come by at 1 o'clock and pick up your child?
Yeah.
Like, give them a specific thing.
Yeah.
Or, like...
I'm going to the store. I'm gonna grab
What
some
can I
things. What
get
can I
you?
pick up for you?
Yeah.
Right.
Can I get you dinner tonight?
Or, yeah, exactly. Like, I'm going to go pick up Chick-fil-A for my kids. Can I drop off Chick-fil-A for your kids tonight? Like, something very specific that they don't have to feel bad about asking.
Right.
Or, I'm going to take my kids to the movies tonight. Can I come by and get your kids and take them and give you a little time alone? Or can I, they had a great deal on chicken tonight and I picked you up one. Here's a rotisserie chicken and here's some mashed potatoes.
Yep.
Maybe you guys could pick at it. Or here's a fruit salad.
Yeah.
Like, just do
Just
it.
help.
Yeah.
So you go ahead, come up with an idea, share the idea, and say, this is what I'm bringing you.
Not
Yeah.
what
This is
can
what-
I do for you?
Right, because they're
that's too
always
much
going to
pressure.
say no.
Yeah.
And they don't, and sometimes you don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially if you know they have kids, like one of the coolest things one of my friends did, well, this time and last time, was like every Sunday night, one of my friends dropped off snacks for my kids for the week. To just take it off my hands. I didn't have to think, what am I packing for lunch?
Yeah.
Every Sunday, there was something left on my doorstep that was like, here's some little Oreos, here's some Cheez-Its, here's, because then I was like, I am too tired to pack lunches.
Oh, of course.
Here's some Uncrustables. So my kids just went down the line. They grabbed an Uncrustable, they got a bag of Cheez-Its, they grabbed whatever.
But
And
what
so
a blessing.
that was,
You didn't have to think about it. You didn't ask for
Perfect.
it. It was just right there.
And, and friends have done that for me last time. They did it for this time. They did a meal train. And, I did it for a friend that had cancer. Like, put a cooler out on the porch. If you don't feel like answering the door, if you're just not up to having a conversation. Because
Which is
sometimes you
totally
just feel like
understandable.
crap.
Yeah.
And you feel so guilty that you can't put on a happy face. That it's just nice if people just come by and they're like, it's in the cooler.
Yep.
Just, grab it whenever. And that was super helpful. And, people have just been amazing. And I, super blessed with great friends. And really, that's been nice. And I've met some of the nicest people that have just reached out to me for help. And it's great that I've been able to help other people too that I didn't even know, that were like, hey, I'm going through this, what do you know about this? Or, and I had a friend, a lump turned out to be nothing. Or then I've had friends that unfortunately it has turned out to be cancer. And, I'm like, text me at 11 o'clock at night. You can text me at 2 in the morning. I might be up. Or if not, my phone's on silent and I'll get back to you at 6 a.m. when I do wake up, And sometimes, like you said, it's nice to hear that it's normal. And you're like, what is this weird pain? Or what is this weird...
I'm not alone.
Right.
Yeah. And also it's always learning from somebody else, and whatever, if it's horse training or health issues, cancer. What was your experience? Because I'm scared. I don't know what I'm going up against. What is this going to be like maybe for me?
Sure.
And hearing like your story and testimony and other folks as well, it gives a person, okay, that's what I'm going to have to go through, but they made it. This is their attitude. This is what I need to do.
I tell people all the time, I'm like, there's so many advances. Like, they give you a pill to fix every side effect. And sometimes those cause side effects too. But, I've done it 3 times now. Oh, it ain't fun.
Right.
It's going to suck.
Yeah.
But it's doable. You can get through it. I've managed to work through every chemo. I take days off, but I take my kids to horse shows. Now there's been times you show up at the barn at 6 a.m. for a horse show. Okay, kid, you're here. I'm going to be napping in the truck.
Yep.
I'll take a little short nap and then I'll come back, and when we're ready to go, throw the horse in the trailer and we'll go. And
What have the horses done for you during all of this? And I know for your kids it's an outlet and it's a joy for them, but what about you personally? Like, what do horses do for you?
It's a sense of normalcy. I enjoy it. I love it. Like, I don't get to ride as much as I wish I could, because a lot of times I just don't have the energy.
Sure.
But it's still, who doesn't love it? We all love them. Like, it's just so nice to go out and visit your favorites, and you just pat them and love on them and sniff them, and you know, and it's still just such a nice, peaceful
Gives you
thing.
time to be in the moment.
It is, and you know, and it's not. I think horses aren't something that require, for the most part, a whole lot of physical strength.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that pretty much everyone could do. I went on a trail ride after I shaved my head the first time, and the funniest part was my helmet didn't fit anymore. I was like, I didn't realize how much hair I had until I went to put my helmet on, and it was like, and you know, with the little kids, you're always like, oh no, the helmet doesn't properly
Yes.
fit. And mine didn't have the dial in the back, so I had to put my hoodie up and then jam my helmet, because otherwise it was
Hold it
rattling
on.
around like,
Oh
you know,
my
the last
gosh.
pea in a can.
Perfect.
So now I have two helmets, one that's when I'm bald and one that's when I'm not.
Hey, safety first.
That's right.
Exactly. But we did go on a family trail ride with my
Aw.
little bald head.
That's awesome.
And, you know, you have to bring sunscreen to the horse shows
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're bald.
Yes.
And I've never been a hat person.
Yeah.
And when you're bald, like, it's kind of, I don't know, hats are scratchy. Like, you don't realize how
Okay.
scratchy they can be when you don't have hair.
Sure. So what did you do?
So, you know, I did, like, the first time I had chemo, I lost my hair in, like, October, so it was cold.
Sure.
So I did a lot of, like, you know, little knit
Beanies,
hats,
yeah.
and, yeah, or like bandanas and scarves. The second time, I just slathered on sunscreen, you know, like like stealing the horse's Desitin and try to rub it in real good,
Perfect,
so
yeah.
my hair is not like this shining white beacon.
Did you do wigs at all?
I did it. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a hairdresser. Would you go to a hairdresser
Right.
or wore a wig?
No.
You'd be like, what did you do to your
Right,
hair?
yeah, no.
Why are you wearing that?
Oh,
I mean, maybe if it was something just fun and goofy,
Yeah.
but like if I was trying to look like I had hair,
sure.
my clients would look at me and be like, no, what have you done?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And like new clients that would come to me and they'd be like, you had hair last time. What
Yeah.
happened?
Where'd your hair go? Let me ask you, have you heard of Go Gen Go?
Uh-huh.
Have you utilized that at all?
My social worker actually just applied to that one for me.
you. Okay.
Yeah, she's applied to some things to try to like, because, you know, we've got this $7,000
Right.
one we're trying to.
Can you talk more
But
about that?
that-
I'm not familiar with
Go Gen Go is a Charlotte-based charity.
that. Okay.
Jen was an athlete. She got cancer. It ended up taking her life. There's a charity called Go Gen Go, and what they do is they help women who are currently battling the disease
Okay.
with expenses like medications that are not covered, transportation to appointments, meals,
Wow.
basic necessities that you can't afford while you're trying to save your own life.
Right.
They step in and they help with. Well, we just confirmed last night that we're partnering with them on this event.
Oh, great.
So the people who cannot be here or are able to make a donation to a 501c3, which we are not, which HerScan is not, can make them to Go Gen Go. And then that will enable them to help people like you who are dealing with this and need help with the medication, help with transportation, help with the meal, help in some way.
Right.
That's what they do. So I'm so thrilled that
Yes.
they're coming on
That's
board with this
wonderful.
event and that we're going to be able to
Awesome.
help them help other people. So.
Yes.
And some of those donations, like a lot of corporations will match your
Yep.
donations to a 501c3
Exactly.
where
Yeah.
they can't always match.
Well,
'cause
and
of
that's the
living.
thing. So if we've got a corporation that wants to make a donation, that wants to help out, and I'm not a nonprofit,
Right.
now they can. Now they
Mhm.
can give that money to Go Gen Go,
Exactly.
and they can put it to good use.
That's
so
really cool.
I'm,
That's
I'm
wonderful.
really excited about that.
Yes, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Anything you want to say to women before we wrap this up to put on this? Any message you
Ooh.
want to say? And no pressure. If there's not, then that's fine. Because we said a lot.
We did. We covered it. We covered
Yeah.
a lot.
I babbled.
Well,
No,
that's
no, you
what
didn't.
this is. This is just us shooting the shit, and then I edit it down, and it's what a flowing, fabulous conversation.
Yeah.
Look how articulate I sound.
And,
Well, one peed.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, oh.
oh, one definitely pooped. I can smell it right
Yeah,
there.
there's somebody pooped.
Yeah.
I remember.
And that's when the flies.
And I was like, I won't giggle.
No,
I
you
giggled.
could have.
I'm like,
Like they're pooping.
really right there. Hi, Bart.
And it was Red that came and peed right on the hay.
Yeah.
Bart, what's up, man? He's like, man.
Nobody told me we were filming.
Hi, bud.